no updates. As you know, I kind of research these and add to them and go back, and sometimes I don't report them to you immediately. So, anyway, this is the case of Matthew Pendergrast. Matthew was born January 4th, 1977, to his parents, Jeff and Mary Ellen. Matthew had two younger sisters, Julie and Diana, and his family was from Atlanta, Georgia, which, have you ever driven a car there? Insane 8-lane highways. His father worked as a plastic surgeon. Now, Matthew was described as being kind of short for a guy, and then I read his height and I was like, oh, that's how tall Sean is. He was 5'6", but despite this, he was still very involved in sports. In high school, he ran track, he played goalie for the soccer team, and he even participated in wrestling. He also had an affinity for music, and he played several instruments. Now, in addition to all of this, Matthew was considered to be like an intellectual. I don't want to say a nerd, but an intellectual by many of his close friends. He had this one particular friend that said that they spent many nights in intellectual discussions that ranged from existential philosophy to literature to quantum physics, which I can honestly say I have never sat around discussing quantum physics in my life. And I'm like the queen geek. Friends also describe Matthew as creative, unselfish, introspective, and kind. Another fraternity brother said that Matt never took himself too seriously. He was a good balance between an introvert and an extrovert. His mother said that he was a very caring person. He did not seem to have any enemies. He was well liked and respected by his peers. So, as I said, he grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. He graduated from Westminster School, which is a prestigious private school in the upscale Buckhead neighborhood. He was popular. He, as I said, ran track, played soccer. After his high school graduation, he enrolled at Rhodes College, a small liberal arts college. He initially wanted to go to medical school, but he fell in love with the Spanish language after a trip to Mexico, and at that point decided to change his major. His fraternity brother Justin said that he was just mystified by this case. He said that Matt had really never given any indications that he was unhappy with his life and just wanted to disappear. He'd been looking forward to graduation and starting his adult life. And you know, that's one of those things that people ask when people disappear. So Matt had spent the past 2 summers doing volunteer work at an orphanage in the Dominican Republic. He had returned a few months ago after studying abroad in Spain. He was hoping to work with a nonprofit group after graduating, and he had plans to go on a trip to the Caribbean shortly after his graduation ceremony. So the man had plans for his life. Many of his friends had graduated the previous May, so when he returned from Spain, he felt somewhat lonely, but he only had 1 semester left before he had enough credits to graduate. He kept in touch with many of these friends over email and had not visibly shown any signs of depression before he went missing. Matt was in a long-distance relationship with a woman that he had met while heads in the direction of his early morning Spanish class. That was so weird. His class was held just 4 blocks from his apartment, but he never made it there on that morning of December 1st. He called one of his friends from his hometown in Atlanta and left a voicemail for him later that morning, and I'm not sure of the exact time of this, but it was the last time that anyone ever heard from Matthew. The 23-year-old never returned to his apartment, and he was never seen again. So around 2 p.m. that same Friday, Matt's vehicle was found on a private dirt road in Lonoke County, Arkansas. Now remember, we're in Georgia. Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. He's in Tennessee for college. Where is he? He's in Tennessee for college, my bad. He grew up in Georgia. I love to mix locations up. My bad, so sorry. I'm confusing all of you as well as myself. So he's nearly 2 hours away from his college in Memphis. The road that his car was found upon is located off of Interstate 40, and it was used by local hunters to access the Bayou Meadow Swamp area. And it was a group of duck hunters that actually discovered the Forerunner. It was actually partially blocking the road. The Forerunner was unlocked with the keys in the ignition, and Matthew's backpack was on the passenger seat. Now these hunters could see that the keys were inside the Forerunner, so they wanted to move it so it wasn't blocking the road. But they just left a note and asked this person, "Hey, can you move your car off to the side?" It was parked on like a levee, so they really expected it to be gone the following morning when they came back out to hunt, and they were kind of surprised when it wasn't. So they decided to look through this abandoned vehicle, and they find an old oil change receipt that has a phone number on it, which is exactly the same thing they would find in my car. It turns out to be the Pendergrast home phone. They call it and they ask about this abandoned vehicle. His mother answers, and she later recounts the conversation for a news outlet. The hunters say, "Can I speak to Matthew?" And she says, "Well, he's away at school in Tennessee." And they say, "Well, his car is in Arkansas." So Matthew's parents are pretty concerned that his car's in Arkansas because he's supposed to be at school. They contact his landlord, this woman that he rents a room from, but she didn't pick up at first. Later on, she told them that she heard him leaving for school that morning, presumably to go to class. Or she heard him leaving, presumably to go to class, but she had not seen or heard from him since. Next, the Pendergrasts contact the Roads Security Department, so the college's security department. Officers send someone out to check on Matthew, but they don't find any sign of him. They note that his room was messy, but that's not really uncommon for a lot of young people or people. said he was super upbeat at the time. The two of them had chatted about Matt's upcoming senior presentation, and although Matt did sound somewhat stressed about the work he needed to get done before graduation, it wasn't to a great extent. Gio had missed a call from Matt that Friday morning, and Matt had left him a voicemail, but he had just said that he was going to be spending the weekend studying. The following Friday, investigators returned to Arkansas, where Matt's forerunner had been found. Although this area had already been extensively searched, the water levels had receded by the end of the week, and detectives wanted to make sure that nothing was missed. Divers from the Arkansas Fish and Game Commission were in the process of combing through the bayou, while canine teams scoured the fields, woods surrounding the wetlands. And while search teams were out looking for Matt, detectives were going through all of the belongings found in his vehicle, hoping that something would provide them some kind of clue as to where he had gone. Investigators also continued interviewing his friends, relatives, classmates. Detectives were especially interested in Matt's journal, which was found in his backpack that was still inside of his car. The journal contained a lot of poetry and things about nature and life. But it was an entry called The Silver Elves that intrigued investigators the most. They found a website that described the concept of silver elves as a way of obtaining immortality by walking into the water and becoming one with nature again. A woman named Carol Pate, a psychic from Little Rock, Arkansas, told the police that she believed Matt was trying to be reborn as a silver elf. I believe he felt he was in a battle for his soul, that he was battling demons and he lost. Detectives, however, found nothing to indicate that Matt was familiar with this website about silver elves, and there was nothing to suggest that he was on a quest to obtain immortality. His use of the term silver elves in his journal may have been entirely coincidental and unrelated to this website. He'd written dozens of poems, and only one of them referenced silver elves. And none of his poetry indicated that he wanted to unalive himself. The Arkansas State Police joined in on the search, assisting the Lonoke County Sheriff's Office as they continued to comb through the area around the forerunner. Investigators admitted they were baffled by Matt's disappearance. Arkansas State Police Sergeant Paul Curtis noted that they found nothing in the vehicle that would indicate foul play. But until we find him, one way or the other, it's difficult to say. Sergeant Curtis said he wasn't sure if Matt was still in Arkansas or not. He had no idea if Matt was still alive either. You know, the human will to survive is pretty strong. It's possible to survive out here in December. Is it possible without clothing? Probably not. Several of Matt's friends traveled to Arkansas and waited anxiously for any word as the search teams combed through the area, exactly 1 week after Matt was missing. Jason Lee Woods told reporters that everyone liked Matt. He's not just the kind of guy that anyone would want to hate or hurt. Gio wondered if things had turned out differently, if he'd been able to take Matt's voicemail that morning. He had no reason to even be in Arkansas, he said. By Monday night, the search teams decided to suspend the search again. They had scoured the area without finding any trace of Matt and really just weren't sure if he was actually in the area or not. Lieutenant Sturdivant told reporters that state wildlife officers would continue to survey the bayou by boat for a couple weeks to see if any additional evidence surfaced. On December 19th, 18 days after he'd gone missing, Matt's parents announced that they were offering a $5,000 reward for information leading to their son's whereabouts. His mother, Mary Helen, said she wanted nothing more than to have Matt home for Christmas. We really believe someone knows something that would help us find Matt. We are just in the midst of wondering what in the world happened. Matt had last visited his parents over the Thanksgiving break, and he had planned to return to Atlanta after his finals were finished, the week after he vanished. He'd been in a good mood the last time he'd come home, and he had been excited about his plans for the future. Mary Helen noted that he had decided he wanted to spend his life helping kids in underdeveloped countries. Sergeant Curtis admitted he wasn't really sure if a crime had been committed. He said, "It's a strange case. We have a missing person, but he's an adult, and I guess if he wants to leave his clothes in his vehicle by the side of the road, it's really kind of up to him." State wildlife officers were continuing to conduct sporadic searches of the Lonoke County waterways, but they never found any trace of Matt. Sergeant Curtis was confident that he would eventually be found if he'd ended up in the water. If a person's in the water, eventually they come to the surface. Weeks go by without any progress in Matt's case. On January 25th, Lonoke County officials conduct another search of the area surrounding the area where Matt's forerunner had been found. They scoured the fields and waterways for any sign of him. A helicopter surveyed the area from above, but they found nothing. On January 26, 2001, Matt's family announced that they were doubling the reward they were offering for any information. They were willing to pay $10,000 to anyone who could tell them where their son was located. Sadly, at this point, Matt's case started to grow cold. In June of 2001, investigators conducted several more physical searches for Matt. They expanded their search area deeper into the bayou using boats and helicopters. This new search took them much further away from the area where Matt had left his car, but detectives said that it was conceivable that he could have made it so far that they wanted to make sure that the area was thoroughly searched. But they still found nothing. By July of 2001, Matt had been missing for 7 months, and his parents had no idea whether he was alive or not. Every night, they made sure to light a candle and place it in their front window as a symbolic gesture to help guide Matt home. Mary Ellen was still baffled by this situation and had no idea why Matt ended up in Arkansas on the day he was supposed to be in class. Why would he turn off the road there? There was nothing to attract him, not even a fast food place. It makes me think that he did not do this on his own. Years went by, and both detectives and Matt's loved ones came to the conclusion that he was most likely not alive anymore, although they admit they have no idea what happened. The way Matt's clothing was found led his parents to believe that he was not the person that put those items there. Mary Ellen said, "Our son was not the neatest soul in the world. He would not have folded his clothes up and left them in a stack." Jim Kulisa, one of the Lonoke County investigators that originally worked on the case, agreed that this scene was odd. "In my opinion, I believe the whole area was staged. But by who?" He considered the possibility that Matt had been involved in drugs or another high-risk activity that got him killed, but he really soon discarded that theory. He found nothing in Matt's background to suggest that he had participated in any sort of illegal activity. Neither Jim, Kulisa, or Matt's parents believe that Matt was a likely candidate to unalive himself. He was so excited about his future. He was doing well in all of his classes. He was on track to graduate just 2 weeks after he vanished. Detectives, as well has Jeff and Mary Ellen think that Matt may have been carjacked in Memphis after he left his apartment to go to class. Jim Elissa told reporters he had questioned several people and asked one individual to take a polygraph, but that man refused. Detectives still have no idea exactly what took place on December 1st of 2000 when Matt disappeared. As far as evidence goes, there's really just nothing to pinpoint what happened to him. By 2015, Jeff and Mary Ellen had resigned themselves to the fact that they would probably never see their son again. But they still wanted answers. Mary Ellen said there's no such thing as closure, but we would love to know for sure. We've never had a memorial service for him, and just to be able to do that would be very healing. So let's talk about this case a little. That's all the information that I have for you. There's really nothing else. So I think it is completely bizarre that he ended up in Arkansas. I wonder what he would have said to Gio that morning when he answered the phone. I do wonder why he drove the 4 blocks to class. Why not just walk? I mean, I know it's December 1st and it's probably cold, but it's 4 blocks. That comes from me thinking that gas is, $4 a gallon where I live, so it wasn't like that in the year 2000, so maybe not. I have no idea if it was snowy, how cold it was. It was 7:30 in the morning, so maybe, 4 blocks isn't even enough for your car to warm up. If he was carjacked, so he's in Memphis. It's a big city, but there's no evidence of him, stopping for gas, stopping for a coffee, breakfast, anything like that. So if he was carjacked, either it was right outside of his apartment, which then, why didn't he go back inside? Did the person force him to go with them? Or it was, in the parking lot of his Spanish class, which, I don't know about the year 2000, but I would think that the school would have some kind of camera. I would think. But then if he was carjacked, when did he call Gio? What time did he call his friend? Got a frog in my throat now. The fact that his clothes were stacked neatly in the woods kind of creeps me out. It's a little Blair Witchy for me. The fact that he was not that tidy of a person, even if he was, we're gonna get into that, but trying to unalive himself. I mean, why stack your clothes? Just drop them. And even then, why take them off? Just go into the water. I don't know. That seems really, really weird to me. And I could see why his parents would think that that was staged. My mother probably would have said the same thing. I'm not going to fold my dirty clothes. I'm not going to. I'm going to toss them. So let's just say that I believe this silver elf theory, which I don't. I've never heard of it before this case, which tells me he would have had to stumble upon it somehow. And I feel like if he was the type of man to be writing all this poetry about nature and life, that would have been one of the things that would have been mentioned several times. Even if it wasn't the term silver elves, but being immortal, becoming immortal, all of this stuff, I feel like that would have been written in his journal. I don't think that he was on a path to unalive himself, whether it was to be immortal or not. He had a girlfriend, they were happy, they were trying to make it work, he had plans for the future, plans for trips, plans for what he was going to do to help these kids in, these countries that needed help. To me, that just doesn't seem like a person that... I see that my camera is being stupid themselves. They just don't tell other people. They don't show it. They don't talk about it. They don't brag about it, etc. They compartmentalize all that stuff and they put on this mask. Same, I do that. I try not to let people know I'm upset. I try not to let people know I'm sad or depressed or whatever. Not saying that Matthew did not do this, but I don't know. It just seemed to me like he had too much going for him and too many positive things to be on that road. So let me know what you think down below. Do you think he was carjacked? Do you think he wandered into the woods 24 years ago and was just never found? And if so, why? Why did he wander into the woods in Arkansas 2 hours away from college? How did he even know that those woods were there? Like his mom said, there was no reason for him to turn off the interstate there. Nothing. Nothing that would make him turn that way. Maybe that's why it was chosen. But if he was carjacked, why didn't they actually take the car? Again, because they drove 2 hours to the middle of nowhere. Clearly they didn't want him to take them somewhere. They didn't steal his money. They didn't take his credit